Hello everyone, welcome to the ACCA Law Revision Series, where I'm building to give you a clear exam oriented understanding of every topic you need without drowning you into long, irrelevant explanations. My goal in these sessions are very simple: explain you law, show you exactly what examiners test, train you to apply concepts to scenarios because that is where most students loses their marks. Every chapter will be divided into short structured videos, revisions, examples, and exam style MCQs, so you can cover the entire syllabus quickly and effectively. If you follow these lectures in the order, you will be exam ready without wasting any time. Before we start, a quick introduction about myself. I'm CA Tanya Kakkar, an ACCA faculty. I have trained students across multiple ACCA papers, especially in law and taxation. My teaching style is straightforward, exam oriented, and based on real industry's logic. I work with ACCA students regularly and I understand where students struggle, and this series is designed exactly for that, to remove all the confusion. If you want a clean explanation, structured revision, and proper reasoning, you are at the right place, my friends. Let's get started with our first lecture without wasting any time. In this first lecture, we are starting with chapter 1, which is the foundation of our entire paper. We will cover purpose of the law, classification of the law, civil versus criminal law, sources of law, court structure, doctrine of precedent, and statutory interpretation. If you understand this properly, the rest of the syllabus will become very easy and piece of cake for you guys. So let's get started. All right. So let's get started with chapter number 1, English legal system. Our first topic talks about interrelationship between economic, political, and legal system. Interrelationship between all of these three is basically, these three topics are pretty much interlinked. A country's political economy consists of three interlinked systems: political, economic, and legal. The political system defines how power is distributed and exercised. The economic system defines how resources are produced, owned, and allocated in the economic system. And the legal system sets the rules and enforces laws governing businesses and individual behavior. These three influence each other, and as a future global finance professional, you won't work under just one system. You will interact with multiple frameworks. So it is very necessary for you to apply all of these into real world scenarios, like why some countries attract more investments than other, or how weak legal system can actually impact your businesses. This is what we talk about when we are saying that how these economic, political, and legal systems are interlinked with each other and helps us to create a better economy at large. So let's get started with our very first topic, which is economic systems. Basically, there are three types of economic systems: planned economy, mixed economy, and market economy. What do you mean by planned economy? In general sense, in case of planned economy, government controls all the resources and allocation of resources. For example, countries like China and Russia historically used to follow planned economy, where government plans and allocates all the resources. Market economy is where private individuals controls all the resources and allocation of resources takes place basis on demand and supply in the market, basically as per market forces. In current scenario, US and UK follow market economy. And what do you mean by mixed economy? Very simple: a mixture of both of these economy, where both government and private sector come together and manages resources. It is combination of planning and market economy. For example, countries like India, France, and most modern nations follow mixed economy uh, kind of economic systems. See, all of the notes that I have curated is for summary basis, and these are majorly revision videos. So we'll try to go as deep as possible. However, I will try to make sure that these concepts are being explained in a very crisp manner. I will definitely take live and industry based examples wherever necessary. However, I believe these three types of economic systems are very easy to understand, and following my these notes that I have curated, you can revise very quickly. Basically, these notes are for the purpose where you are sitting one day before exam and you want to go through each and every single concept. Here you have it everything in a very concise book form. All right, let me know in the comment section if you need these soft copies for these, and I'll share with you the links for the same. So we discussed economic system. Let's now discuss what do you mean by political system. Political system defines how power is obtained and exercised in economy. It basically it is a system which shows that how economy is actually managed. There are two main types of political system. The first one is dictatorship and the second one is democracy. What do you mean by dictatorship? So, in case of dictatorship, here the leaders of the economy or of the political system are selected on two different bases, either by military coup or monarchy. What do you mean by military coup? Basically, where government is there, however, military becomes so strong that probably illegally the military takes over the government. And monarchy is basically the kings and queens, and these are the people who are into political systems and they manage everything. They make law, they manage economic systems, so on and so forth. Ma'am, who are these countries that still follow such kind of dictatorship? A very, very good example for this is, if we talk about military coup, North Korea, and if we talk about monarchy, Saudi Arabia. These countries still follow dictatorship kind of political systems. Who hold power here? A single leader or a ruling group is someone who holds power here. And what are the citizens participation? Citizens participation are very limited or as good as none participation from citizen. It is more controlled and restricted kind of political system. In the same, however, democracy is exactly opposite of it. It is free and fair elections. People are given right to elect by voting, which you and I usually do. We elect our representatives through voting and public debate. Usually, India, US, UK, these kind of countries follow democracy. Basically, rule of protection of rights and government accountability follows here. These are the key features of democracy, where people have right to speak and people have right to select their government. So we discussed about economic system, political system. Now let's discuss about legal system. But ma'am, there is already political system. What is the need of legal system then to come into picture? Because political system where there are leaders appointed, they can manage the economy. They can make sure that the economy is going good. Then what is the reason of legal system to come in? Basically, the main reason is separation of powers, where power is not concentrated in just one place. Power is not there for just one political system or these group of people who are there in this political system. legal system makes sure that power is segregated between different set of people, so that there is no concentration of power. If ever there is a concentration of power, those set of people can use this power for their own benefit, and hence legal system is very much required in the economy to function, so that the group who is there in the political system don't take undue advantages of the power that they have with themselves. Let's read what's written. Legal system usually is understood as local rather than global terms. What do you mean by this? So see, legal terms or law is different in different countries. Let's take an example that in Switzerland, if you wash your car on Sunday, it is a crime, like it is not allowed as per law. However, if in India, if that would have been true, if that would have been uh sorry, if that would have been law, all of us would be behind bars because we wash our cars every Sunday, correct? So when we talk about legal system, it is more locally than globally. Basically, these set of rules and regulations apply only and only in your particular country and does not apply globally. All right, so there might be possibility that so many rules and regulations that exist in India may be irrelevant outside, and you have to make sure that whenever you're going outside, you know the rules and regulations of that outside country so that you don't breach those. Okay, and these are made by people governing the country. Basically, it is telling that who make these laws. We will discuss this in detail while we are discussing separation of powers. So, separation of powers, in summary, it basically ensures power is not concentrated in single authority. We discussed this just right now. It divides functions and governance among three independent bodies. Basically, power in case of legal system is also divided between three bodies. What are those bodies? It's legislature, executive, and judiciary to maintain checks and balance and to protect democracy. Basically, legal system is usually followed, like, or is there in democracy. I'm not saying it's not there in dictatorship, but works a little differently in case of dictatorship. We will discuss that as well. I have summarized the separation of powers in legal system for you in this particular chart. You can also let me know in comment sections if you want a brief detailed explanation for all of these, and I can provide you for with those as well, where we are understanding and covering each and very small topics as well in brief. However, these are revision lectures and we will just focus on revising each and every topic, where I'm presuming that you know all of these topics. However, I'm still making sure that I'm understanding the exact meaning of it by going in a little deep. So, in some topics which I feel are difficult for you, I will find a middle way where it will not be exactly crisp revision, but not exactly a very brief, long detailed explanation. It will be somewhere in between, and separation of powers is exactly that kind of topic. Basically, there are three parts where powers are separated. The first one is legislature, the second one is executive, and the third one is judiciary. Now, what do you mean by legislature? Legislature is basically where law is made. It depends who is making law, that depends, but however, legislature makes sure that the law is made and what laws are supposed to be made and so on. Appointment depends on basically the people who makes these laws depend i- on if country is following democracy or dictatorship. So if your country is following democracy, people who are making these laws are elected. However, if your country is following dictatorship, These people are appointed either by hierarchy, basically either by monarchy or the military coup. All right. So who makes these law? It depends. If you follow democracy, people are elected. If you follow dictatorship, people are appointed. Now there are different types of legislature. The first one is sovereign legislature, and the second one is subordinate legislature. Now, what do you mean by that, ma'am? Legislature meaning people who are making law. What do you mean by sovereign and subordinate? When sovereign legislature, this is a more kind of an unlimited lawmaking power where people who are making law, they have unlimited power to make law, and they are not bound by any higher authority to take approvals or so on. Whatever law they make are final. So let's say I am a dictatorship country, and a few people are appointed to make law, and I follow sovereign legislature. So these set of peoples that have been appointed, these people have all the right to make law at any point of time, and whatever law they make is binding, and they don't need to take permission from any upper authority. However, subordinate legislature is something that countries like us follow, countries like India follow, where lawmaking is limited, meaning being you have powers to make law, but those powers are limited. Every law you make are supposed to be approved by the upper authority, and if anything goes wrong, that law can be strike down by the judiciary. Basically, that law can be declared as null and void if anything goes up and down. This is the difference between subordinate and legislature, subordinate and sovereign legislature. Sovereign legislature gives you unlimited lawmaking power. It is not bound to any higher authority, and law made is final here. However, subordinate, you have limited power, and for example, parliament law transports law by ministry. If it goes against constitution, judicial can anytime strike it down. For example, here UK parliament, UK usually follows sovereign legislature. All right. So legislature is all about making law. Now, executive, what does executive talks about? It is exactly what the word says, executive meaning executing or implementing the laws. Legislature makes the laws. However, people in executive committee, you can say, make sure that the law is implemented. This includes governments, ministers, etc. Basically, these people are obliged or has the responsibility to execute this law, to implement this law. And judiciary, judiciary is basically where they interpret law. Interpret meaning where they understand law and where they protect law, such as courts, supreme courts, high courts, etc. These courts are made for you to understand law and to protect law. Let's say if anything or any person does any wrong, you sue them and you take them to the court of law, and then judges decides that what exactly is written in law, by whoever, like whatever is written in legislature, whoever made this legislature, what was their interpretation of law, and then they apply this law to protect, basically, law itself, to protect law, meaning being, let's say if a law says that you are not allowed to speak, okay, just hypothetically, a law says that you're not allowed to speak, and anyone spoke, let's say law says you're not allowed to speak during weddings, and anyone spoke during wedding. So court will, or the judges will, make sure that this law is protected, meaning being the person who spoke during wedding is punished, so that people at large comes to know that this is the law and they are not supposed to violate it. Judges basically protect the law and make sure that it is not violated in general sense. Judiciary is where they interpret, meaning they understand or they give meaning to the law, and they protect law. This includes courts and Supreme Courts. They can declare law passed as null and void, meaning if any law is passed, all right, and the law is not making sense, or see, usually law is made for the benefit of public at large, and this law which has been made is not benefiting the public at large or creating some bad image of the country, or so on and so forth. And if judiciary, or let's say the judges, decides or thinks that this particular law is not good for the economy at large or even for the political system or so, in such scenario they can declare law null and void. The judiciary have the power to do so. However, this is not possible if you are following sovereign legislature, because in sovereign legislature you have unlimited power. You don't need to take permissions from anyone, and whatever law you made is final. So this is what is written here. It is not possible in UK. Basically, it is not basic. Just a second. Yeah, sorry. Basically, it is not possible in sovereign legislature. So if your country follows sovereign legislature, judiciary cannot declare law or the laws passed as null and void. But if you follow subordinate legislature, judiciary has the power to do so. So basically here the powers are segregated between the person who makes law, the person who executes law, and the person who protects law. Separation of powers, a simple meaning of legislature, executive, and judiciary is making law, executing law, and protecting law or interpreting law. I hope this is clear. Where in this, I'm keeping it crisp. Like every video, I'm keeping it very short so that it does not get boring. So as of now, in this particular chapter, we started with interrelationship between economic, political, and legal systems, and we discussed all of these three types of systems. However, in case of legal systems, we just discussed as of now separation of powers under legal systems. However, there is still more to learn about it that we will be doing in our next lecture. If you found this clear and useful, continue to the next lecture in the playlist. This chapters follows in sequence. After each chapter, either attempt MCQs yourself or solve it with me, because I will be covering exam-based MCQs at the end of every chapter to sharpen your exam techniques. You also get a quick shorts for 2 to 3 MCQs explaining key concepts. See you in the next session.